And finally, Victor chooses one of the most desolate and bleak places on earth to begin his labors anew. Now, before he does that, and I'm skipping over to chapter 19, he talks about himself. And if you remember back at the beginning of the book, when he witnessed a bolt of lightning destroying a tree, he now says of himself, I am a blasted tree. The bolt has entered my soul, and I felt that I should survive to exhibit what I shall soon cease to be, a miserable spectacle of wrecked humanity, pitiable to others and intolerable to myself. Okay, I'm going to belabor it one more time. Victor's removed himself from nature. He is the blasted tree. He is empty. But again, he chooses the most desolate place that he can find in order to begin to make the female. And he says, it was a place fitted for such a work, being hardly more than a rock, whose high sides were continually beaten upon by the waves. The soil was barren, scarcely affording pasture for a few miserable cows and oatmeal for its inhabitants. Why does he choose such a desolate place in order to go about his new birth? Well, it's really pretty simple. When he was making the creature, he enclosed himself in his labor of his workshop of filthy creation, and he could see nature outside, but he kept himself separate from it. Now he chooses a desolate place because this is a place which nature seems to have turned her back on. It is not fertile. It is not green. And not only is Victor not going to be distracted by what he sees out his window, it perfectly fits his mood as he sets about his new labor. And later in chapter 19, he continues on with the same type of vocabulary and phrasing that he used when he was building his first creation. During my first experiment, a kind of enthusiastic frenzy had blinded me to the horror of my employment. My mind was intently fixed on the consummation of my labor, and my eyes were shut to the horror of my proceedings. Now he is commencing labor again. And he is sequestering himself just like he did before in a different place, but nevertheless it's the same type of imagery that he used before. Now what does Victor do? He starts building this woman, this creation, and then he starts to second guess his decision, and he starts to have doubts. And in chapter 20 he said, He, the creature, had sworn to quit the neighborhood of man and hide himself in deserts, but she had not. And she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with a compact made before her creation. And then a little bit down from that, he says, yet one of the first of results of those sympathies for which the demon thirsted would be children. And a race of devils would be propagated upon the earth who might make the very existence of the species of man a condition precarious and full of terror. So he's thinking, even if the creature says does what he says he's going to do, is she? And of course, we all know from examining other myths that women are the ones who release ills upon humankind. It is Eve who eats of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil first. It is Pandora who opens the chest that lets out all the ills on humankind. However, I do want to point out something here. Eve ate of the fruit first, but it isn't until Adam eats that all chaos, and excuse my expression, all hell breaks loose. But Eve is the one who convinces him to do this. So we have seen the creature compared to Eve. How would this new woman be? Would she say, I didn't sign that. And, I don't want to live out here in the desert or the wilds of South America. I want to have a nice house. and then the children would come. I do want to pose a question about the children, though. Would it not have been very easy for Victor to have negated the possibility of this female creature from even having children? Leave her uterus out. Leave her ovaries out. She's not going to have babies then. And so he decides to perform an abortion. And yeah, that's kind of strong language, but basically that is what he does. And he says, still in chapter 20, I thought with a sensation of madness on my promise of creating another like to him, and trembling with passion, tore to pieces the thing on which I was engaged. Now, his creature has been watching, and at this point starts howling. And Victor goes on to say, I left the room and, locking the door, made a solemn vow in my own heart never to resume my labors. And so he performs an abortion and basically then locks off the access, his male uterus in another, perhaps that's stretching it a little bit, if the room is his workshop of filthy creation, and he shuts it off. And then he disposes of the pieces. So the creature is doomed to be alone, and this is very, very, very upsetting to him because he craves company. He craves a mate, just as Adam craved Eve. At first Lilith, some says, and then Eve, and just as Victor himself plans to marry Elizabeth. And so what does the creature say to him? So in chapter 20, I go, but remember, I shall be with you on your wedding night. Big foreshadowing. And so Victor leaves the islands and becomes lost on the sea, and then he washes ashore in Ireland. And one more video at least.